Hello, viewers, it's Josie. Welcome back to Eclectic Movie Reviews and Updates. And we are at the end of summer. As of this recording, it's August 29th. And I'm going to discuss some of my first time watches that stuck out to me over the summer of 2023. And these are films I watched from like May through the end of August. Uh, and I'm going to talk about 7, six, 15 or 7, 15 or 17 or 6. Um, but I think I'm gonna break it up into two videos where I talk about 8 in one video and then 8 in another video, which I'll maybe record later today or tomorrow or Thursday. But anyway, let's start off. As always, it's alphabetical. First up is Antonia's Line from 1995, directed by Marleen Goris. This is a Dutch film centered on a tight-knit group of empowered women in a rural community in the Netherlands over a course of a couple generations. The matriarch being the titular character Antonia, played by Willeke van Amelrooy. Is really, really hard Dutch name to pronounce. Um, it's delightfully heartfelt. The ensemble cast is wonderful. The characters are vividly individualistic. I love how the story sort of unfolds like a fairy tale. The narration sounds like the reading of a storybook. Although the costumes and production design are meant to be realistic as far as capturing the time period, they do look like they were pulled from a storybook. And the film presents what an empowered female-led society could be like without it all being preachy. The men in the film are equally interesting. There's Bas, Antonia's love. There's the Crooked Finger, who's the wise neighborhood sage the children learn from. And there's a really cute special needs couple in the film, Dee Dee and Loopy Lips. And even so, Antonia's Line does not shy away from, like, even so, like, despite, being, heartfelt, like a movie that puts a smile on your face, it does not shy away from the harsh circumstances of life. Part of what makes the film so empowering is to see how the women overcome their personal obstacles. The biggest theme in the film would probably be the life cycles of birth and death. Beyond being a feminist fairy tale, Antonia's Line is a humanist fable illustrating the importance of love and kindness to one another. It's available to watch on Pluto TV, and there's a DVD, and I think there's a Blu-ray too, and this film is deserving of a Kino or Criterion release, and even though it won the Oscar that year for Best Foreign Language Film, and it was the first international film by a female director to win the award, even though that was the case, like, I feel like it's not talked about a lot, and it should be. Okay, so that's Antonia's Line. And then next up is Blood Tea and Red String from 2006, an stop-motion animated film directed by Christine Kegavatsky? I don't know how to pronounce that. This is another feminist fairy tale, but much more gothic. There is class warfare between the aristocratic white mice and the creatures who dwell under the oak. They are more provincial and peasant-like than the mice, of course, than the white mice, of course. And the aristocratic mice task the dwelling creatures to design a doll. And after making her, the creatures form an attachment to the doll, and they are resistant to handing her over to the mice. After the mice then steal the doll one night, the creatures who dwell under the oak embark on a fantastical adventure to retrieve the doll. And the astounding stop-motion animation in the sets here is an achievement in filmmaking. There's no dialogue, so the storytelling is all through the movement of the critters and the imagery. Such direction takes such a degree of difficulty, and not to mention that it took Christiane C, Miss C, 13 years to make this. every hour of effort she put into this film is visible on screen, and it's really remarkable. And I'm going to read a couple of quotes from some articles about the film. First one is a segment from Jane Hebner's article, Divine Feminine Negation, from Hyperreal Film Club. The doll goddess with her bird child and the spider are two sides of the same coin, the creator and the destroyer. There is no inherent evil in the spider, and none of the characters regard her as such. She is a necessary force of nature. The red string encapsulates this duality in a single image. It is red string that the creatures use to imbue their goddess with life. The same red string spun by the spider to bind and suffocate and extinguish. The mice get drunk on the blood tea of vice, but in their drunkenness they are brought to epiphany. So that's, like I said, from Jane Hebner's article. And then this is an excerpt from a Fangoria article by Alexander Helenicholas, who's brought up a lot on Pure Cinema podcast, on like Just a Diss and Chasing Labels. Her name is referred to a lot. She's like a film historian. This is from Fangoria article, Wild Women with Steak Knives, Blood Tea and Red String. But it's the floppy girl doll herself who lies at the heart of the film, the objectified female commodity to be stolen, fought over, defended, died for. In the animated film, that the central figure is so explicitly lifeless in is a remarkable creative decision, existing as she does amongst equally lifeless creatures that Kavasky's I can't pronounce her last name, jaw-dropping skills as an animator have brought to light. Trapped in lifelessness, it's hard to miss the film's feminist agenda on this front, where a woman-shaped bag of cloth becomes the quarry in such a heated battle between dwelling factions. And they all dream of her coming to life, pretending in multiple ways that she is a real girl, not just some old fabric and soft cotton wadding. Men or mice, there are myriad tales to tell about oppression, violence, and obsession. Blood Tea and Red String is a masterclass in just how varied those modes of storytelling can be. Yeah, so, and it's, I don't think we could have gotten, similar to Antonia's line, I don't think we could have gotten a better story without a woman's point of view. And both films it would be interesting to pair up with Barbie. Next up is Brassed Off from 1996, directed by Mark Herman. Set during the National Union of Mine Workers strike in England from 1984 to 1985, the narrative follows a Colliery brass band in Yorkshire who are threatened by a pit closure. And though not directly based on a true story, the story was inspired by the struggles of the Grimethorpe Colliery band went through during this time. And Pete Postlethwaite is the conductor named Danny Ormondroyd, and he is wonderful. A woman named Gloria, played by Tara Fitzgerald, comes back to her hometown to see if the band has any economic... I do apologize for the landscaper's noise. Anyway, so Tara Fitzgerald's character, Gloria, comes to town to see if there's any economic sustainability with the mine workers strike taking place. And one of the bandmates happens to be her childhood friend Andy, played by Ewan McGregor. And Gloria joins the band as a flugelhorn player, and a romance blossoms between Andy and Gloria. And meanwhile, the conductor Danny, on top of trying to keep the band together, is dealing with his son's Philip's financial and familial struggles, and Phil was left by his wife and children. Like, he's having some issues with them, and additionally, Danny has some health struggles. And Brassed Off is truly inspirational story about a community coming together and persevering for what is right in the midst of chaos. It's very relevant to now with the double actors and writers strikes. And other industries and workforces have, we're on some verges of striking too. Like, UPS didn't issue a strike, but they were close. And I believe that like some hotel workers, if I'm not mistaken, in California are on strike. And uh, somebody wrote on Letterboxd, you know a film is good when it sticks its middle finger up at Margaret Thatcher. Now I'm just thinking of that scene in Triangle of Sadness when they quote Margaret Thatcher drunkenly, "The problem with socialism is you run out with other people's money." You know, that's what the Russian fertilizer salesman says. Anyway, different movie. Brass Stuff is available to watch for free on Pluto TV. See if you can get it from a DVD at your library. I can totally see this being like a Kino or Shout Factory release, uh, or even like Indicator. Um, Next up, uh, Chilly Scenes of Winter from 1970. Okay, but first, before I get to, I've been into the films of Joan Micklin Silver recently. She was a director who made some films in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. Uh, she unfortunately passed away almost 3 years ago. Um, she lived from 1935 to 2020. So she was like, I think like 85 years old or something, or 90. I don't do the math correctly on that, but so uh, her. Before I get to Chilly Scenes of Winter, you know what? Screw it. Why not I talk about some films of her in alphabetical or in date order from Hester Street. First, I'll talk about Hester Street, which was her debut. And Hester Street came out in 1975. And this is an adaptation of a novel, Jekyll, A Tale of the Near Ghetto by Abraham Cahan. And the story follows a Jewish immigrant family in early 20th century New York City. The black and white cinematography gives it the feel of an old historical photo album from that time period, for sure. And Carol Kane plays Gittel. She and her husband, Jake, played by Stephen Keats, have a son. He actually spent some time in the city prior to Gittel's arrival, and Jake has an easier time assimilating into American culture than Gittel does, and it leads to marital challenges. Jake gets abusive, and sadly, and you know, in spite of this, Carol Kane's character has a self-actualization journey. She's at a crossroads of different selves: her Russian Jewish immigrant identity and her American identity. And beyond that, she has to learn self-love and independence. And Carol Kane and Stephen Keats' performance are excellent here. And even in spite of like the husband, you know, uh, being the way he is towards Gittel, it Joan Micklin Silvers doesn't portray him as a one-dimensional villain of the story, and she gives him human layers. And I also really like Melvin Howard as Bernstein, a man whom Carol Kane's character befriends, and Doris Roberts is quite funny as Mrs. Kowarski. Doris Roberts from Everybody Loves Raymond. This was way before that. And what I love most about this movie is that compared to other movies about immigrant life, it doesn't feel glossy or Hollywoodized. Like it feels personal and realistic. It doesn't give like a magical, idealized version of America. In fact, the characters are more of like of the characters than the idea of glorious America itself. And so that's Hester Street. It says it's available to watch on Amazon, but with a premium subscription. And I don't know what other separate service they're referring to, because that's usually what it means when, like, you look online, it says Hulu or Amazon Premium subscription. It means that, like, you have to have another subscription to another separate service in order to watch it on that service. It's confusing. You can also rent it on Apple TV and YouTube. There's also a Blu-ray through Cohen Media, and it's available to watch on Canopy. That's the way I watched it. This would be a great addition to the Criterion Collection since Chilly Scenes of Winter got a release. And now that I brought that title up, let's move on to Chilly Scenes of Winter from 1979. Okay, there's this subgenre that of romantic comedies that I absolutely hate, with two exceptions, with a couple's exceptions. This may sound crybaby-ish, but like movies, spoiler alert, that pull like a 500 Days of Summer, where the guy doesn't get the girl, but it's like done purposely in a way where it's like kind of like a smug way, like this film is different from other romantic comedies. Look, like, we're being subversive for the sake of looking cool and hipster, if you know what I mean. I got so much shit back in the day for hating that movie, but the funny thing is that that movie has not aged well, and more people over the years have come around to realize that, I feel. I mean, there are still fans of it, and God, I hate that movie so much I struggle to even speak the title. Okay, so, and those who watched my channel know that The Worst Person in the World is a big exception to this rule, because I think that's a very authentic portrayal of someone learning the hard way how to cultivate self-love. And, but I discovered a new exception with Chilly Scenes of Winter. Charles, played by John Heard, the dad from Home Alone, has a boring job in a Utah civil service office. Forget the landscaping sound. He lives with his roommate Sam, played by Peter Riegert from Local Hero, and he's kind of a loser too. And one day, John Hurt's character Meat is immediately infatuated with one of his fellow office workers named Laura, played by Mary Beth Hurt. And she's in a failing marriage, so obviously that gets in the way of her relationship. Also, Charles's feelings for Laura aren't exactly reciprocated, and throughout the film, because like the film, it's voiceover narration from after they've split, inevitably, and I would consider Charles to be an unreliable narrator. It's sort of a Fatal Attraction situation where in Charles's mind, their 2-month fling was an extremely deep connection, but in her mind, it wasn't anything super special. And there are times where his pursuit gets aggressive, and he says things that are pretty icky and off-putting. And, like, Charles even has a dollhouse at his house that is modeled after Laura's house, and, like, there's one scene where he jokingly says that he could rape her. And quite honestly, if I were Mary Beth Hurt's character, I would be uncomfortable too, and I wouldn't want to be with John Hurt's character if I were her. And a benefit, I think, of having this film be directed by a woman is that it sort of gives us a distance between Charles's mind and the audience, if that makes sense. In a lesser movie in the hands of a lesser male director, I think the protagonist's obsessive stalker behavior would be normalized, but Joan Micklin Silver does not do that. While she does make you feel compassion and sympathy for John Hurt's character, she's not saying that what he's doing is okay. And there are times where I was watching this movie that I felt like I was watching a horror movie, and in a good way, of course. But yeah, Chilly, really amazing performance by John Heard, and really excellent screenplay and direction from Joan Micklin Silver. And there was, like, this movie, there was a there was like a like an edited version, like in 1979, like when it first came out, like they changed the end. They tried to make it a happy ending, and they changed the title to Head Over Heels. And uh, I believe the 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 Blu-ray has like an alternate ending of that, but it's just like another scene that was in the film that was like placed in a separate area. That's what Brian Sauer said. But and then they and then in 1982 they re-released the film with what Joan Micklin Silver was originally intending, and I'm glad that they they did too. They I'm glad that they stuck to her vision. And this was based off of a novel by Anne Beattie, and the author of the novel herself was happy with the changes that Joan Micklin Silver made to the film from the book. Anyway, Chilly Scenes of Winter, there's a Criterion Blu-ray, and I believe you can watch it on YouTube, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. And then finally, the final Joan Micklin Silver film I want to talk about is A Fish in the Bathtub from 1998. And this movie is a riot. Real life married couple Jerry Stiller and Ann Mira play a bickering elderly couple named Sam and Molly. They've been married for 40 years. They have two adult children named Joel, played by Mark Ruffalo, and Ruthie, played by Jane Addams. And one day their bickering reaches a breaking point in which Sam is totally obstinate from Molly's order to get his pet carp fish out of the bathtub. And this triggers Molly to leave and move in with Joel and his wife and daughter. And Ruth tries helping her father win back the love of his wife slash their mother. And as hysterical as the bickering between Jerry Stiller and Ann Mira is, you can see underneath it all that they genuinely do really love each other, and them being a married couple in real life also makes it even funnier. It's also great seeing Mark Ruffalo in an early-ish role. It's it's a what this is a film you should watch with your parents. It's or grandparents. It's hysterical. It's available to watch on YouTube, and it's on DVD and Blu-ray. And next up is Fearless, directed by Peter Weir, from a screenplay by Rafael Iglesias, Rafael Iglesias, who I believe it's based off of the novel of the same title, also by Iglesias. I like I always do. I could be mispronouncing his name. Okay, so after experiencing a plane crash, Max Klein, played by Jeff Bridges, feels like an entirely new person. Well, this near-death experience is a rebirth for him. He feels like, as the title indicates, a fearless, elevated, godlike being impervious to pain. And this leads to him having some trouble connecting with his wife, played by Isabella Rossellini, and their son. And after the crash, he has this notion that since he's shifted states, if you will, he's beyond his family, he's beyond life. And he's transcended all that. And the wife is confused as to why he has this mindset. She's not used to this version of her husband. And what's cool about the cinematography here, in the movie by Alan Davio, who shot E.T. and Empire of the Sun, is that similar to Jeff Bridges' character's newfound perception of himself and the world, it almost feels larger than life when it is still depicting regular day-to-day life, if that makes sense. So then Dr. Bill Pearlman, the psychologist who Max Klein works with, played by John Turturro, introduces him to one of the fellow plane crash survivors, Carla Rodrigo, played by Rosie Perez. And Rosie Perez actually gives a really good performance in this movie. Like, and she's given it like a chance where she can actually act. And I think Rosie Perez can be really good when she's given like, you know, material that doesn't limit her to just being a loud Latina, you know, stereotypical pigeonholing. That makes sense. And she was actually nominated for an Oscar for this role in the year it came out, and but she lost to she lost to Anna Paquin, but um, she's still both great performances. But you know, Anna Paquin the piano, but you know, she was really good in this too. So Carla tragically lost her baby son in the crash, and she's grappling with her loss. And she and Jeff Bridges form a friendship, and he helps her process her trauma. You would think that it would turn into a romantic connection, but I'm glad that it ultimately does not go down that route. It's more of like a survivor syndrome, coping together kind of thing. But it's still a really beautiful friendship portrayed. And then Max feels so above life that he engages in some like life-threatening activities that can ultimately kill him for good. Like he's allergic to strawberries, and like he tries to like eat strawberries, and like he tries to purposely get himself into a car accident, and it gets to the point where he has to come to his senses and be grateful for the life he was already given, you know, with his wife and son, you know, and all the performances are fantastic. Jeff Bridges gives one of his best performances, and I love Isabella Rossellini, beautiful, also great actress, and this is probably Rosie Perez's best performance. And it's Fearless is available to watch for free on YouTube and Tubi, and there's a Blu-ray. And it's funny. On paper, the story sounds a little similar to Unbreakable, and like and like there's some jokes on Letterboxd about that. Let me see if I can pull them up. Fearless. Okay, one person said, does everything a Superman movie should do without actually featuring Superman. Alright. First. Unbreakable for people who can tell their wines apart from one another. Alright, so that's Fearless from 1993. Next up is Freaked, also from 1993, written and directed by Alex Winter and Tom Stern. We open up with a circular frame narrative. Alex Winter plays a former child star named Ricky Coogan. He's being interviewed by about how he went from being a youth sensation to a circus freak. We flash back to Ricky agreeing to an endorsement deal for a toxic fertilizer called Zygrot 24. And after getting a big fat check from this, Ricky and his friend Ernie, played by Michael Stoyanov, go on a trip to South America. And it is there they come across an environmentalist group boycotting the fertilizer product that Ricky is endorsing. Ricky and Ernie meet a girl named Julie, and the three of them go to a freak show. And a wacky mad scientist named Elijah C. Skuggs has invented a freak machine. And he needs subjects for it. And the thing that Alex Winter's character is promoting is the main ingredient for transforming people into freaks. So Ricky becomes a gross green monster And the funny thing about it is that only half of his body was altered, and the other half is normal. And then Ernie and Julia merge together like conjoined twins. And they befriend the freaks. There's a cowboy, played by John Hawkes of all people, who's literally a personified cowboy, a personified cow in cowboy attire. I just want to double check to see if that's John Hawkes or that's someone else. Yes, it is John Hawkes. And by the way, the person who's interviewing him is Brooke Shields. So anyway, there's also a huge arthropod named Worm that looks like a combination of Baron Harkonnen from Dune and one of the sandworms themselves. Well, actually, in some of the later Dune books, one of the characters merges with the sandworm, and it looks absolutely disgusting if you see the book cover. But, timely to bring up, since Dune Part 2 just got delayed. So, Worm is sort of the wise one in the group. And then Mr. T plays a bearded lady. The movie has so many clever puns. They all become friends, and as ridiculous as this movie is, it's actually really creative and quite satirical. It also has a lot of heart. Freaked is available to watch on YouTube. So yeah, that's the first half of summer first time watches summer 2023. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please press the like button and subscribe, and you'll be notified for more videos. And the links to my socials are in the description below. Thanks for watching. Goodbye for now. I hope everyone has a great start to their fall. Bye.